Welcome to this edition of The Clean Finish, brought to you by the OSC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Triple R. We're going to be talking about the aftermath of the mega fight between Floyd Money Mayweather and Conor McGregor. Although this show's primary focus will be professional wrestling, there's no way we can ignore this event as it was too massive to share some thoughts on. I'll be joined by good friend of the show, Chris Cox and the Ant-Man, both who watched the fight, as I actually skipped out on watching it and just simply kept up through the blogs and social media while enjoying some quiet time with the wife. As always, want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen. Please subscribe to our OSC Podcast Network YouTube channel and to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts. Leave comments, reviews, and enjoy the show. Let's go. It is just after 10 a.m., Sunday, August 27th, nearly 12 hours removed from what's been called the fight of the century, and it certainly has been the biggest combat event in my lifetime. Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. Mayweather 49-0, multiple division champion, and one of the all-time great boxers, and without a doubt, the greatest defensive boxer that's ever competed, going up against Conor McGregor, 0-0, making his professional boxing debut. Of course, he is the biggest star today in the UFC and a phenomenal self-promoter. As we all know, the contest went 10 rounds with Floyd winning via ref stoppage midway through the round. So a TKO victory for Mayweather to record his 50th win. I'm joined on the line by good friend of the show, Chris Cox. Chris, we're going to touch on a few things regarding the event last night. But first and foremost, were you satisfied with the end product? $100 pay-per-view, tremendous hype, unlike the kind we've seen before. Did it deliver, in your opinion, with what you were looking for?
Yeah, I thought overall it was a pretty good review. I think the fight actually exceeded my expectations because I went into it really expecting Mayweather to take him down in like 3 rounds. So for it to go as far as it did, I was surprised. And for McGregor to even win any round, I was surprised at that too.
Well, we're actually going to touch base on that here in a little bit. Now, what compelled you to order this fight? I mean, did you feel going into the fight McGregor would have any chance whatsoever? And if not, if you were 100% confident that he had no shot against Floyd, why bother watching?
That was just because of the what if.
The promotion of the fight itself, I mean, it's something that I personally have never seen before. The level of execution that they were able to pull off in promoting this event, I thought they did a phenomenal job. And quite frankly, before the fight itself played out, I thought there was a real good chance that the promotion and the hype leading up to the fight would be better than the event itself. Did you enjoy the hype leading up to the fight?
Yeah, I did. I don't know. I feel like maybe did they go too far though?
Yeah, I thought there was a couple of moments in the hype leading up to the fight where they teetered the line of possibly tipping their hand too much and kind of letting us in on the fact that, hey, we know that this isn't a legit competition. We know that this is a pure money grab, and you don't want to cross the line too much and insulting your audience. So I thought they kind of they came close to crossing the line a couple of times, but the last couple of weeks leading up to the fight, I thought they kind of held back and they with the open workouts and with us seeing McGregor train and Floyd train a little bit, it kind of gave us that sense of, okay, there's an actual competition that's fixing to go down.
Right. Yeah. They took it more serious once the last couple of weeks, so that was good.
The presentation of the event itself, I am not a big fan of boxing events themselves. I think it's a sloppy sloppy presentation, especially the main event. It's just a mass of humanity that's inside that ring that just looks sloppy, and for an event that ultimately comes down to 2 guys alone in the ring, I don't understand why you have to have so many other people be involved. I mean, tell me what the scene looked like last night. I can only imagine.
Yeah, it was typical boxing affair. You got 45 people walking with one guy to the ring, and only like 2 of them have anything to do with the fight. So I'm like you. I've never understood why boxing does that. It's like, why can't they look at something like WWE and basically copy that? It would look a lot better on TV and make for better entertainment. Only fighter I've ever seen really do stuff like that was Roy Jones did that sometimes, and then what was the old dude's name? Timba.
Oh, Prince Nasir Ahmed.
Yeah, Prince Nassim. There we go. But yeah, I wish more boxers would actually put something into their ring entrance. And if you're not going to do anything outlandish, then just walk down to the ring with yourself and your trainers. And that's it.
Any bells and whistles to the event last night? A special person singing the national anthem? Did someone walk out with Floyd, et cetera, et cetera?
No, Floyd didn't come out with Justin Bieber or anything like that. At least nobody I noticed. There might have been somebody with him. Demi Lovato singing the national anthem and sounded like shit. So it was kind of funny though. There was one point I noticed where whenever the chick was singing the Irish national anthem or whatever, you could see Demi Lovato behind her, and she had like this low cut dress. It was kind of like one of those J-Lo ones where she wore to the Grammys. And then like one point she like pulled it further to the side to show off a little more cleavage. So props to her for showing off a little more boob for all of us.
Shout out to Demi Lovato. You mentioned J-Lo. I did see through Instagram and Bleacher Report and social media, tons of stars at the event last night. Anyone noteworthy?
Oh yeah, J-Lo and A-Rod were there. America's favorite couple. Psych. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people there. I can't remember off the top of like they're showing, the typical Puff Daddy. He'll always be Puff. He'll never be Diddy. I don't know, just the usual. There was nobody that like caught my attention as far as they're there. It's just the usual people that showed up.
Were there a lot of UFC fighters? By chance, do you remember if they showed a lot of fighters?
I want to say it was Diaz that they showed was there.
Was Ronda Rousey there?
Who? Nah. Has she not been shamed away from the sport yet? She's too busy doing the battle of the network stars or whatever that is.
Oh wow, I had no idea she was involved in anything.
Yeah, she's on that show. Yeah.
I did see LeBron James was at the event last night. Did he get any screen time?
Yeah, King was there.
He had on some glasses. I guess it was pretty bright in there.
Man, there was a couple people. Oh yeah, Paul Pierce too. He was there with sunglasses on. I'm sitting thinking it's like 8:00. Why the hell is everybody wearing sunglasses indoors? But I guess you gotta look cool. There's people that kept their sunglasses on during the fight. So I'm sitting here thinking like, you probably can't even see very well. So why'd you pay all this money to go to this fight just to like sit ringside and look cool and basically hope the camera catches you looking cool? I don't know. But yeah, it was kind of ridiculous.
Okay, now let's talk about the fight itself.
You want to talk about the undercards?
Yeah. What kind of a?
I'm joking.
No, that picture you sent me of your boy looking like the Childish Gambino album cover. What fight was that?
I don't know if he's inspired by Teletubby or like you said the Childish Gambino cover. I don't know, man. He had the fur on his head, and then like on the side of his trunks, he had like it was at least like 6 inches of fur on the side. So I'm sitting there laughing, thinking like that's got to be hot during the fight. So his balls were probably sweating profusely. Like, I don't know what he was thinking on that one.
PETA is definitely not sponsoring that dude.
No, yeah, he had all kinds of fur. It was snag approved, I guess. Yes. Actually, though, that fight was okay. I felt like they were hyping that guy up like he was going to be somebody really impressive, and that I guess he underperformed based on what he usually does. But I mean, he was kind of entertaining because it seems like he was always going for the knockout blow, So that's fun to watch. But the second fight was actually really good, I thought. So we were joking about it. What was it? Jack and Cleverly, and they had it labeled as Cleverly Jack, and so our running joke was it sounds like some old smooth move you pull on somebody. Like, oh, you pulled the Cleverly Jack on me.
We need to copyright that right there. Now, were there 2 or 3 undercard fights?
There's 3, but the first one was terrible. It was, the typical undercard fight where you're just like waiting for it to end. So that's what I would say just do away with those. Like, and
I believe it was all under Mayweather Promotions.
Yeah, they were all under Mayweather. Yeah, I want to say in the first one was it the first fight or the second fight? One of the fights, Mayweather's dad was in the corner. I don't remember which one it was though. Yeah.
Let's touch base on Floyd Sr. real quick, since you mentioned him. Have you seen any of his interviews? I can't think of a worse interview than Floyd Sr.
Yeah, he's pretty bad. Have you seen Floyd's mom?
No, Floyd's mom, no.
They were showing some footage in the house, and I swear his mom looks like his dad. like if you slapped a wig on his dad, that's his mom.
That's no good.
No.
Okay, so now, let's talk about the fight itself. You mentioned yourself, you were surprised McGregor was able to go 10 rounds, land as many punches as he did, more than Manny Pacquiao from what I read in his matchup against Floyd. But
yeah, I saw that.
But we also have to still remember he had an injured shoulder in that match, not to make any excuses, but that still needs to be added. Do you think that Conor really, did you think this was a situation where Conor really did surprise people? A lot of people underestimated Conor, or do we think Floyd simply allowed him to look as good as he did and really dictated all the action, even when it seemed like Conor was the one doing the dictating?
No, I think Conor legitimately surprised people, and even Floyd even said after the fight, he was surprised. I think his style looked like it was kind of difficult for Floyd to kind of, get his shots in, because the way he was keeping his hands up and out the whole time, it limits you from having any kind of a clean shot, So once he tired him down, then his hands dropped and then it was over, But whenever he was keeping those hands up on Floyd, because he had so much of a reach on Floyd too, so it's hard for Floyd to really get in there if he's keeping his hands up all the time and constantly jabbing him. I mean, McGregor didn't ever land anything that was like, oh my God, that might be the shot. But he was landing, quite a few jabs and things like that. I don't really think any of them were effective, but they were winning him rounds early in the fight. And I was surprised by that. I literally didn't think he would win a single round the entire fight. So I was surprised.
Well, and this is not to discredit McGregor, because I'm actually a huge McGregor fan. But when I read that, Floyd only threw 5 punches in a round, it didn't seem to me like he was looking to win that round.
No. Yeah, Floyd, you could tell, that's typical Floyd, too, though. Floyd does most of his fights. The first 3 rounds, he's not doing anything. He's just basically sizing you up and seeing exactly what you're bringing, and then after that, it's over, because he's got you down, and, he knows what to do at that point, and he just picks you apart. And the strategy was smart, too, with McGregor, because he knows McGregor is not a boxer that's trained to go 12 rounds, so you let him just throw all of his punches at the beginning of the fight, and if they're not hurting you, just let him keep doing it, wear him down, and then you just pick him apart.
Did Conor look, physically bigger than Floyd? Was there a pretty big difference?
Yeah. There's a noticeable size difference. I didn't even pay attention to what the weight was, but standing in the ring, you could definitely tell there was a big difference there. It was kind of like, you remember whenever Roy Jones went up to heavyweight, and it was like, yeah, he might weigh what he's supposed to weigh, but you could tell that's not where he belonged. It was kind of the same kind of difference.
I'm reading and I'm hearing a lot about the stoppage. 10th round, midway through the 10th, somewhere around there. Referee stops it while Floyd had Conor pinned up against the ropes. What did you think about the stoppage?
I don't know. When you're watching the fight, you're kind of upset because you just wanted to keep going. But then whenever they're showing it in instant replay, you realize he probably didn't throw a punch for an entire minute, and he's sitting there getting bombarded. And literally the only shots he's not taking is the ones that he's stumbling backwards and almost about to fall over. So, I don't know. I mean, as a fan, would I like to see it go on? Yeah, of course, because I would have rather seen a knockdown rather than a TKO. And I think it was headed in that direction. But, I think he did the right thing, ultimately, just because McGregor wasn't even trying to fight at that point.
McGregor definitely comes out of this 10 times the star that he was going in. I mean, I thought win or lose, even if McGregor went in and got laid out in the first round, at least he went out on his shield. He didn't, back off or anything like that. This was a no-lose situation for McGregor, in my opinion. But seeing how the fight did play out, are you interested in following McGregor after this fight?
I don't know if he'll really pursue boxing. I don't know if that's his lane to go into, but I mean, like you said, it was a win-win for him, because if he goes in and gets knocked out in the first round, that's what's supposed to happen because Floyd Mayweather is one of the best boxers of all time, and he's supposed to knock him out. But if he takes him even like he did, if he takes him to that distance, he looks like he basically comes out a winner because the whole world's shocked he even got to that point. So, and he walks away with like $100 million. So can't complain about that.
Yeah, reportedly $100 million. I mean, how much of that he gives to the UFC and how much of that he actually brings home. Regardless, he's doing very well.
Yeah, I'm curious to know that. What is Dana White and UFC's pool on that? What kind of percentage are they seeing, or is that after their cut?
No, I think $100 million is going to be before anyone takes their piece of the pie. I don't know. I don't think they've released those details, and I don't think they will.
So he'll walk away with $3 million.
Well, the most he's ever walked away from reportedly in UFC is $10 million. I think the disclosed purse was $3 million, and after pay-per-view, et cetera, he walked away with a total of 10. So, if he does anything 20 and above, I mean, then he doubled what he's made the most in the UFC. So it's a win-win for Conor McGregor. Let's not sit here and pretend like the man's not doing very well for himself.
Yeah, but I mean, anything less than 50% would be like absurd, though, right? Because it's not a UFC sanctioned. If they're basically loaning him out, I understand that. It's like a consulting fee, right? Like, right. Yeah, okay, you can take a chunk just because you're representing me, but at the same time, like, I'm the one doing the work. So, I mean, he should get at least 75 of that.
I would think 60-40 would be fair, but if it turns out that it was 50-50, I can live with that because at the end of the day, he is contractually obligated to the UFC, and they had to give their blessing for him to do the fight. So I'd be okay if it was a 50-50 split. So if McGregor and Paulie Malignaggi, I'm not too sure. I'm sure I'm butchering that last name, but the guy, Paulie, the guy that was sparring with Floyd. If those two fight down the road, would you be interested in seeing that?
Nah, probably not.
Was he working the fight last night?
Was he working the fight? I don't know. That name doesn't even ring a bell to me, but I don't keep up with boxing like I used to, anyways. Like. Like the Triple G fight coming up. Like sadly, I don't even know who that dude is, and everybody's hyped up about that fight, and I'm like, so I mean, I just don't follow it like I used to.
No, I'm with you, man. I'm a casual boxing fan at best. What little I follow through Bleacher Report. I go through the headlines, from time to time. So I'm familiar with Triple G. I've never seen him fight, but I'm familiar with the name. But no, Paulie was supposed to be working the booth. It was supposed to be a 4-man booth. It was supposed to be Paulie. It was supposed to be Letterman, I believe, and then Mauro Ranallo, and then Brendan Schwab.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, Floyd wins. It's the result that we expected. But how did Floyd himself look? Or is it even fair to say, I mean, do we even know how seriously he took this fight? Is it fair to say, is it fair for us to even know he looked the absolute best he could have last night?
It's hard to say because he was fighting different than he usually does. Like, coming into the fight, he said he was basically going to make up for the Pacquiao fight and the last few fights that people felt like weren't entertaining because Floyd's boxing style is not entertaining. Like he's a defensive fighter, he's a counterpuncher, so he's not going out there to knock anybody out. He's going out there to win based on the way the sport is scored. And so it's never like very appealing to a person who doesn't appreciate that, right? So he went out basically fighting a completely different style. And you got to commend him for that because he's leaving himself open, to one lucky punch that could end it all. And if he loses that fight, then he's not even remotely in the greatest of all time conversations. You know what I'm saying? And he's 49-1, all that. So, I don't know. It was interesting.
So you think a loss last night really would have hurt his legacy?
Oh yeah. I mean, you lose against an amateur fighter, like that would be horrible. Like that would be much worse than Buster Douglas Tyson or any of that. Like I would think. I mean, the guy's not even a professional boxer, and he comes in to beat you, and you're supposed to be the greatest of all time. Like that would be horrible. But no, it was just interesting, just because of the different fighting styles. So it's hard to even tell if he was underpreparing because he was fighting differently. He wasn't really dancing around the ring any. He was basically just stepping towards Conor the whole fight. So I'll give him credit for that. But I would assume he trained like normal.
I think that speaks to his genius, though. You know, he acknowledges, you know, hey, I let the fans down my last handful of fights. He acknowledges what's been the biggest knock against him is, yeah, he's great technically, and what he does in there is phenomenal from a defensive point of view, but his fights aren't necessarily entertaining. So he sees this opportunity to go up against Conor McGregor, a guy who's brash, who's talking shit, who's just the mirror image of him. And he takes this fight on. It's low risk, high reward. You know, he doesn't have to do any of the promoting himself. McGregor's going to carry that load. And come fight night, he basically just has to show up. And, you know, there's always that small chance that he might get caught with something, but he's so good and he's so confident in his skills that he felt this was an easy win for him, you know, huge payday. Yeah. And it just speaks to the genius of Floyd Mayweather. And listen, Conor McGregor is a genius in his own right, you know, for putting himself in
oh yeah, talked his way into millions.
You know, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this fight came to fruition. You know, we live in the age of social media. I mean, is this good or is it bad for an event like this to go down on the strength of social media versus old-fashioned promoting? How do you think about that? How do you feel about that?
I think it was good. I've seen a lot of people saying like, "Oh, it's the death of boxing" and all that, but I don't see how. And you know, you can't just step into it, no matter how good of a fighter you are on the other side, and even stand a chance really. Because once it really got down to the actual fighting after the first couple of rounds, like you could clearly tell like Mayweather is a seasoned veteran, and he made him look like an amateur.
I agree 100%. You know, the whole notion that this would have been bad for boxing, completely ridiculous. And I think the biggest loser from last night was actually Oscar De La Hoya.
Yeah. What's with his little comments like, is he high again in stilettos and leggings and stuff, posting on the internet again? Is that what's happening?
I don't get it. You know, I say he's the biggest loser, not in the sense of the event last night is bigger than his event. I mean, that's a given. I mean, it's unfortunate. It is what it is. But I think he actually could have used last night to help promote his event. Exactly. Just like you're saying, you know, instead of instead of talking shit about it, I tell people, hey, you know, this is a big spectacle for boxing. You know, support it. And then if people watch it and they're entertained and they enjoy it, well, then that's more people that are likely to go to your pay-per-view. You know what I'm saying? Or if it comes out horrible, then that's whenever you come out and say, oh, well, see, that wasn't real boxing. If you want to see real boxing, tune in on the 16th or whenever it is. I think it's September 16th, right? But tune in on this day and see what real boxing is all about. You know what I'm saying? Like, he could have definitely used it to promote his own card, but I don't know. I think he's just sour that Floyd kicked his ass. Yeah, it was just a huge missed opportunity. I mean, I don't know if him and Showtime were going to be able to work with one another per se, but you know, he may have had to have bought his own ticket to get to the building. Someone would have tracked him down for an interview, and he could have been able. Well, I mean, not that buying his own ticket would hurt De La Hoya, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, they weren't going to help you per se, but you definitely could have used it as an opportunity to help promote your event, to help promote Canelo and Triple G. You know, him coming off the way that he's been coming off, I think actually hurts his promotion more than helps it. And
he just looks sour.
He does. He looks very sour and he looks out of touch. And you know, and to be quite frank, I don't think his event, you know, you just got done saying yourself, you don't know who Triple G is, and you're fairly in tune with the sports world. So I don't think the Mayweather McGregor fight hurt his event as much as he probably think. The hardcore boxing fans are going to buy that match no matter what. Man, it's not like his pay-per-view was going to do crazy numbers anyways.
No. Which one was scheduled first? Was the Triple G Canelo scheduled first?
Triple G Canelo was scheduled first.
Okay.
Hindsight being what it is, they could have had this fight, you know, after the Canelo fight, and it would have been just as big, if not bigger. But you're not sure how the public's going to accept it. You're not sure, how the promotion's going to come off. So the thinking was, hey, let's put our fight before their fight, just in case ours is a turkey, So I think that's what the idea was.
Well, and the major loser last night was Big Three, right? And that's huge, right? Like they had to change venues in the whole nine, right? Because they had that venue originally scheduled for their championship and then had to move. So they got treated like the redhead stepchild anyway.
Yeah, they had to move, but they did get paid. They were compensated to be moved, but listen, at the end of the day, they were told to get the fuck out. So yeah, right. Definitely the biggest loser, the Big Three. You ain't got to go home, but you got to get the fuck out. There you go. All right, man. Well, cool, man. Well, I appreciate you taking time to chime in to give me your thoughts on the fight itself, man. It sounded like you enjoyed the fight itself.
Yeah, overall, it was entertaining. It was well worth the price, I thought. So I wasn't upset with it at all.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you later.
All right.
Joining me on the line right now, friend of the show, Ant-Man. What's going on, homie?
What's up, man? Triple R, good to be back. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Now, last night you watched the fight, correct?
I did watch the fight.
What were you expecting going into the fight?
To tell you the truth, I wasn't sure what to expect. I thought Conor would do kind of have more MMA tendencies, but he did surprisingly well in holding that back as much as he could. And I thought Mayweather would be Mayweather. He would, play defense, sit back, figure you out, and then, get his shots in when he could. But he did completely the opposite. So it was a pretty good fight.
Were you familiar with McGregor going into this fight?
I had seen a few of McGregor's UFC fights. Obviously, I know him from his promo skills, all that stuff. But I can't say that I'm a diehard McGregor fan.
Right. He's a tremendous self-promoter, and he's extremely charismatic. So I can definitely see why he has such a large following. And the promotion leading up to this matchup, there were parts of me wondering if the promotion itself was going to be better than the fight. What did you think of the promotion leading up to this fight?
I thought the promotion started off pretty good, and then towards the end kind of went off the rails.
During the 4-city tour.
Yeah, during the 4-city tour, by city 3, by city 4, it kind of had started to take a left turn and kind of almost jumped the shark there. But the first two were great. Obviously both Mayweather and McGregor are both excellent self-promoters. They're very assured of themselves. They know what they offered on the table, and they let it out on each other and let it out for the fans to see. And and the fight actually lived up to better than what people expected for this particular event. Considering you have an MMA guy fighting a fighter who's 49-0, this generation is probably the greatest boxer of this generation.
Did you watch the fight on your own, or were you a part of a large gathering?
I was a part of a large gathering. I had no interest in watching the fight, honestly, to tell you the truth. I just thought it was going to be not a very good fight, but my brother was getting the fight. He had some people over. And couldn't find the Miguel Cotto fight on HBO, so I was like, why not?
And to be quite honest, man, that was my situation. My circle of friends isn't very large here where I live. So the ones that I would have watched the fight with, they had plans, and I just wasn't compelled to watch it on my own. So I just skipped it and just opted to keep up with it on the blogs and on social media. You and I, we're both wrestling fans. I mean, this is the Clean Finish podcast. I'm not a fan of boxing events as far as the presentation goes. How do you feel about the presentation of an actual boxing event?
It really all depends on the particular match. Some undercards are so much more boring than other undercards. And it seems like some fights you get them stacked, and each card leading up to the main event is building on each other, and they get better as they go. And sometimes they just sometimes the main event doesn't live up to the fight, and one of the undercards is better. But I think boxing is they don't do a very good job of matching those fights up properly, and getting people attracted to it. Plus, I think the fact that they start so late, and by the time you get to the main event, it's already 10, 11 o'clock at night, Central Time at least. It just doesn't tend to, set things up properly.
I agree 100%. And then as far as the actual show itself, leading up to this fight, there was a lot of talk of how much of a spectacle it was going to be, and so on and so on as far as the fight itself. But, when you spend $100, for a show, you would like to think you're going to get something more than just, abrasive attitudes and the fight itself. I just think boxing promoters, they don't tend to put together a very compelling show as far as entertainment value. And for example, let's compare it to the WWE. Even if the matches were, nothing to write home about, you're in for a show at least. The spectacle of it, the pageantry, the stage setup, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas in boxing, aesthetically, it's just not very pleasing to the eye. Why does there have to be 100 people in the ring prior to the main event?
Oh, and then right after, it's like you can't even tell where the boxer is and where the referee and the announcer is. I agree with you 100%. And then on top of that, their spectacle for these main events are celebrities walking the red carpet to the matchup. It's like, their idea of setting up a main event card is playing Where's Waldo with the celebrities. And I get it. Great. Celebrities are boxing fans. They can afford those $10,000 seats for this fight. And that's all well and good. But the focus should be on the ring. And I was kind of disappointed when it came to McGregor and Mayweather for their entrance. It was very, very simple, very clean. And, I expected Mayweather to come out with like an Irish jig song playing. And I expected McGregor to come out, with, something that, basically says he's the greatest of all time, and just kind of came out very quiet, very calm, and was kind of disappointed.
No Triple H sighting?
No Triple H sighting. No, Triple H was not in the building. Enzo Amore was there.
I did see that on social. Yeah, I did see that.
I do know that Enzo was there. I don't think Triple H was there.
There were reports of the venue not selling out, and it's not hard to imagine why when the tickets are so high in price. Did that come across on TV? Did you see some empty seats?
Yeah, you could definitely see some empty seats, and leading up to the main event contestants coming into the ring, you could still see that they were filtering in slowly and that they were still there. And I saw on social media that even 2 hours prior to the fight, tickets price points had not dropped at all. You're talking about like $1,500 for the third row, the upper deck part. And they showed I saw a picture. Darren Ravel on his Twitter had a picture of binocular stand on the third level concourse for sale for $10. I'm like, I'm not paying $1,500 for something that I need to get binoculars with to watch.
No, that you're asking way too much from the public as far as that goes. I think they definitely priced themselves out from a potential sellout. In addition to the arena not selling out, there were also reports of pay-per-view outages across the country, and they actually had to delay the main event. Did you guys experience that up in Oklahoma?
Yeah, we did actually. There was one section I was on social media trying to catch the highlights of the Cotto fight, and then I saw that they said that the main event would be delayed due to power outage. And no sooner than I mentioned that the screen kind of goes fuzzy for a few minutes and then comes back to the fight. So we did kind of see that, and we did notice that, but it wasn't too bad in our area.
Oh, that would have been catastrophic right there. So leading into that, going into the actual fight, let's go ahead and touch base on that. From what I saw, read, and heard, it looks like the game plan was for Mayweather to let McGregor come out, guns blazing, tire himself out. He let him control the early part of the fight in hopes that he would tire himself out. Was that apparent when you were watching it last night, or did it catch you by surprise what McGregor was able to do?
I think McGregor caught me by surprise in the fact that he came out ready to box and was landing. The man has a nice jab. His right hand was nice. He was landing it. And then later on in the rounds, I think by round 2 and 3, it became apparent that Mayweather was trying to let him tire himself out. He knew that the UFC, they only go 25 minutes. So he was trying to let him tire himself out. And what was also surprising is that Mayweather, for the first time in a long time was coming forward, which is not Mayweather style. Mayweather style is to sit back, play defense, and allow the guy and then figure him out and find the weak points. Instead, Mayweather was coming at him, and that caused Conor to keep punching, and exert all his energy.
How noticeable was the size difference?
Oh, McGregor is clearly bigger than Mayweather. It was you could clearly tell that he was the bigger guy. And of course, McGregor didn't weigh himself in the day of the fight, but I would say he probably was back up to 160, 165.
And that would definitely play into him tiring himself out carrying that much weight around the ring.
Yeah.
Read and I saw a few times in the highlights Mayweather giving his back to McGregor. Was it explained at all, like maybe the broadcast team, what the strategy was for Mayweather doing that?
He didn't explain it other than him saying that he said he was gonna come out and come forward, and that's what he did, and he wanted to tire McGregor out. I think part of the fact was the fact that that McGregor kept switching from southpaw to righty stance on him. And in doing so, he kind of caught him in awkward angles, and it always seemed he ended up having, to his defensive stance, always ended up behind him. And then the fact that Mayweather was ducking down low. I mean, he was ducking down low, ends up in the combination with him changing his stance back and forth, ended up either catching him kind of right behind the ear or, on the backside of him.
Did you think it was an early stoppage, or did the referee just simply stop the inevitable from happening?
I think the referee probably stopped the inevitable from happening. I think you might have been able to let that ride out a little bit, but I think Mayweather ultimately probably would have knocked him out, or at least they would have stopped it later. But at the end there, you see like he's wobbling, and they're hitting him hard, and he just won't go down. And sometimes those fighters, when they're on that point, they just get that second wind, and then it becomes like brand new. I could see almost McGregor getting to that point, but I think the ref stopped it maybe a little bit too early, but it was inevitable.
Who comes out the biggest winner? Was it McGregor? Is it Mayweather, who we all assumed was going to win, or is it McGregor, who may have earned some boxing fans' respect and may have garnered some new fans last night?
I told Alex, I said, if this goes longer than 5 rounds, McGregor wins whether he loses.
Exactly.
Because he took, and think about it, he took Mayweather to 10 rounds. And was convincing. It wasn't like Mayweather was beating him down the whole time. It was pretty close. In my mind, I had the card pretty close. And he took him 10 rounds. And I've seen professional boxers not go that long and look worse against Mayweather or other boxers. So I think if it went anything past 5, which it did, it almost went the distance. McGregor wins either way.
Now, let me add to that. Had McGregor gotten knocked clean out in the first round, I still think he comes out a winner, depending how he composes himself during the post-fight interview. If he humbles himself, if he gives props where props are due, I think he still comes away a star. Now, he comes away a bigger star with how the fight actually turned out. Make no mistake about that. But I thought it was a win-win for McGregor as long as he played the part correctly. How did Floyd himself look? We've been talking all this time about McGregor. How did Floyd himself look? I mean, did he look like he was ready to say a Canelo Alvarez rematch?
Floyd looked pretty good. Again, watching Floyd come forward, it kind of throws you off. He looked pretty good. He landed some pretty decent punches. I think he's happy with retirement. I think he's lost a little bit. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. I don't think he has that pop like he used to. But I think he's done. He made close to $300 million. I think he's out for good. Yeah,
$300 million would definitely have me going towards retirement myself. But I think a lot of credit needs to be given to Mayweather. McGregor came in with a 0-0 boxing record. This is his debut professional boxing match, but he's an accomplished fighter. Granted, in the MMA world, but still, for Floyd to be able to do what he did, who's to say? Did he take this fight seriously? Did he go in with a half-hearted attitude? Who's to say? If he did, and he was still able to finish McGregor, hats off to the man. Are you interested in seeing McGregor back into the boxing ring, or where would you like to see him go?
Believe it or not, he was actually pretty damn impressive as a boxer. I think if he gets the right trainers, he's 29. I know that's old in terms of boxing years. He's still relatively young. Yeah, he might have the ability and the capability to win a couple belts. I really do think so. Obviously it's hard to break some of those MMA habits that you've learned. But honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing him fight again.
Would you watch him fight Paul Magliani?
Oh, yes, because I cannot stand that dude.
You can't stand Paul?
I cannot stand Paulie Malignaggi.
Okay, thank you for saying his last name because I've been butchering it all day. Did he work the broadcast?
He did work the broadcast. He worked the broadcast with Al Bernstein and Mauro Ranallo. So shout out to WWE announcer Mauro Ranallo from NXT working the fight. He was working the fight, but I cannot stand Paulie Malignaggi.
Now, what was he saying? What kind of insight did he give, if at all, about his time with McGregor?
From what I saw, he didn't really talk too much specifics about his time working with McGregor, more so in the fact of giving insight into the differences between a boxing training and a MMA training. So highlighting some of the differences in the way that, boxers stand as opposed to MMA fighters stand, and head movement and stuff like that. He gave a lot of insight into that. I don't recall him saying anything specifically about McGregor's camp or anything that went on in there. You could tell he looked a little uncomfortable every time they talked about Conor McGregor.
What does your gut tell you? You think this breaks the pay-per-view record, 4.5 million? I don't think it does, man.
I don't think it does either. I don't think it does, because I think a lot of people, for the sheer fact that it was $100 and it was a spectacle of an idea of a boxing match, I think they went to places that got the fight, bars, pubs, some movie theaters, and I think they went to watch it there, or just a bunch of buddies got it together and ordered it at one place, as opposed to people just, ordering the fight for the sake of ordering the fight.
Obviously, it's tough to tell. No one can predict the future, but is there any way you see another fight reaching the level of hype this one had?
Oh, I think now that this fight is over, if they spend the time and focus on Canelo versus Triple G, I think this is a fight that's been built up for a while now. And one of those Pacquiao-Mayweather situations, the only difference is both these guys are fighting in their prime, and both these guys are beasts. So I think you have a little over 3 weeks now to promote that fight. I think the Canelo Triple G fight can get to that level, if not surpass it.
Did you think Oscar De La Hoya misplayed the situation, ragging on this fight versus supporting it in hopes of aiding his fight?
I think De La Hoya was salty because his fight was on the books earlier, and then this pops off, and then he gets bumped. So I think he felt a little salty and took it out on this fight, and I guess they could have worked something out where maybe because by the time that the Cotto fight was over, the McGregor fight was just about to start. So you could have worked something out where both of you got what you both wanted. You got eyes on both fights. But he was a little salty. It is what it is.
I think he missed an opportunity in supporting this fight, and I think it would have in fact boosted his fight as well. You know, there were arguably more eyes on the sport of boxing last night than probably ever, and I really think he missed an opportunity right there. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that we're going to work hand in hand and promote one another's event, but you know, you're shitting on an event that can possibly help you out. I thought that was a missed opportunity from Oscar De La Hoya.
And then, for all intents and purposes, we got basically an early 2013 version of Cotto. This fight was a hell of a fight. The Japanese fighter, his name is Kamagaji or something like that. That dude took a hit and kept coming. And Cotto would look like he was, back in the prime of his career, and he was just laying body blows and laying punches in the face. And the guy was just taking a hit and kept coming. So it was almost a missed fight, a wasted fight for Miguel Cotto, who's already come out and said that probably by the end of the year he's going to retire.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I wasn't even aware Miguel Cotto was fighting last night, but I did hear about it. I did see that he won, so glad to see him back on the winning path. We got about 10 minutes left. You want to talk some quick WWE?
Sure, hit it. Let's hit it.
All right, man. So you called it the last time we spoke with one another talking about SummerSlam. You called it Brock Lesnar, Braun Strowman at the next pay-per-view, No Mercy. They announced the fight or the match. I'm over here stuck in boxing here. They announced the match for No Mercy. You thought this was the right move to do?
I think so. I think that you've got Braun Strowman as hot as possible. He came off looking like, a beast among men. From SummerSlam, and in that division, you've got those top 4 guys right there that are probably going to be sharing the title for the next year. So I think it's about time. And on top of that, you've also got Brock Lesnar being a part-time champion, which, I'm not mad at him because he negotiated that. But I think the fans are ready for that title to be there week in, week out, and contested on these pay-per-views.
As of this recording, it's looking like they're going to be going John Cena, Roman Reigns. Do you think it's too early to give that feud away? I mean, Lesnar Strowman, that's reason enough to go a 10 No Mercy, to watch No Mercy. Do you think they need a big double header like that already?
They slowly have been building this feud, starting with social media, going back and forth, and then Monday night John Cena shows up, and he says he calls him out without calling him out. And Roman Reigns answers the call and is like, look, we all know you're talking about me. We're going to do this. I think they need to let it simmer a little bit more.
I agree.
I think that if you're going to put them together for No Mercy, you got to make it a tag team match or something where they're not just them by themselves individually. I think something goes wrong in there, and that builds towards making it more beef, more animosity towards each other, leaving it for later on in the year.
Later on in the year, I would go as far as WrestleMania, to be quite honest with you, man. I think that's a WrestleMania worthy match. It's one of those matches that could pass into the torch moment. That's something that I think they're jumping the shark on way too early, if in fact they do go in that direction, which, I mean, again, as of this recording, it's looking like they're heading that way. Man, how do we feel about Big Kaz catching that tough break, injuring himself this past Monday?
I feel bad for Big Cass. But on the bright side, I think it's an opportunity for them to retool his character.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a situation where the heart grows fonder with absence.
Exactly. And you hate that he tore his ACL. He's going to be out for 6 to 9 months, and you hate that that's what happened. But at the same point in time, if this dude, with the rehab, he gets in, he gets a little leaner, puts on a little bit more muscle, I guess more definition, I should say. He reworks his character, and now you have a vehicle like NXT where you can bring a guy back and kind of start working his character out, developing, fixing that, and then he pops back up, and then you're like, oh man, this is the 7-footer we've been waiting for.
So they move Enzo, it looks like, to 205 Live. You think that was the right move to make with Enzo?
I think so, because your only other option is moving them back down to NXT, and moving them back down to NXT, I don't see benefits anything. I heard that he was talking about quitting wrestling and to become a rapper.
I could see that. Now, I'm not saying he'd be successful at it, but I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it, but then what I would tell you is ask John Cena how that went.
True.
But I think 205 Live, I think it's a perfect vehicle for him to kind of, fine tune his wrestling skills or develop new wrestling skills, I should say.
You know what, man? I don't know if I agree with him going to 205 Live because I just don't know work rate wise he's going to be able to keep up with those dudes, man.
He's definitely going to be lacking, but you know what he lacks in wrestling skills, they lack in promo ability.
Absolutely. Great point. I mean,
and now you have like a big mouth on the 205 Live. So, now you might catch me watching in because you got like somebody out there who's talking a lot of junk, who's, writing checks that his butt can't cash. And so in turn, you hope that he develops better wrestling skills and they develop better promo skills.
Some quick SmackDown notes. Shelton Benjamin finally making his long-awaited return to the WWE. Were you glad to see them come back and bring him back when originally they were going to do it last year, but he had that shoulder injury?
Yeah, it's good to see Shelton Benjamin back. I haven't seen him in a while, so it's interesting to see what he does with this character. I'm not sure if I'm okay with them bringing him back with Chad Gable.
Yeah, it feels a little too much of the old, I agree with you, man. I thought a singles run probably was in order for Shelton Benjamin instead of slapping him into a tag team with Chad Gable. Did you catch what they were going to call themselves?
No, I hadn't seen that.
And then it looks like Shinsuke Nakamura. It looks like he's going to hang around in the main event scene as he took on the Singh brothers to extract his revenge from their interference in SummerSlam. Do you think another straight up Nakamura Jinder match is the way to go for their next pay-per-view, which the name escapes me at the moment? I want to say it's Hell in a Cell, but don't quote me on that. Or do you think we need to see some kind of a gimmick match between the two?
I don't want them to resort to a gimmick match so soon. But I would like to see maybe a straight up match where the Singh brothers are not involved. Something where they get banned from ringside or something like that. And that would make it more interesting for these two. But, I also want to see some more, more viciousness out of if you're going to go by yourself, I want to see more viciousness out of Jinder Mahal, and I think that would make the match a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't think he's been aggressive enough. I know he's playing the role of the heel, but and the cowardly heel, I should say, with the Singh brothers having to do his dirty work. But and you mentioned on the last episode with his physique, with his look, there comes a certain expectation of how he'll act and go about his actions, and I just don't think what he's doing physically is matching how he looks, and I think they need to figure that out.
Hell in a Cell is the next SmackDown pay-per-view, October 8th in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay, so we'll see if it's not going to be the championship match involved in Hell in a Cell, because obviously there has to be a Hell in a Cell match. I don't know, maybe United States Championship, Kevin Owens, AJ Styles. I mean, I think they're trying to go towards Baron Corbin and AJ Styles, but if it's not the championship match, what other feuds do you see as befitting of the Hell in a Cell on the SmackDown side?
We got to go with Shane O'Mac and Kevin Owens, right?
Okay, there you go. And
the man infamous from jumping off of things. Why not?
Well, can you keep going to the well so many times? Like, eventually Shane will have to win, right?
Oh, you would think that eventually he's going to have to win, but
and Kevin Owens is the kind of guy that can eat that loss. It's not going to hurt Kevin Owens.
We'll see. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. See where they're going with Rusev and Randy Orton. Maybe that might be an interesting Hell in a Cell type of matchup.
We'll see. I think I don't know if Rusev's ever competed in a Hell in a Cell. I don't think he has. I don't know. I don't
think he has.
It'd be a hell of a lot more interesting with what they did at SummerSlam.
Yeah, that's true. What do you think about Raw Raw's the only one that has a pay-per-view in September? So it's all dedicated to Raw.
I think that's good. I think 2 pay-per-views a month is way too much. If it was up to me, which, man, I would love the opportunity to run that company. I would have 1 pay-per-view a month and that's it, to allow these shows to build up storylines and interest in the fans. Not just storylines, but interest in the fans. I mean, I don't know about yourself, but when the network first launched, I was pretty good at watching every single, network event. And then the brand split happened, and all of a sudden we're having 2 shows a month, and I start picking and choosing at that point. It's too much product out there. So
yeah.
I would leave it at one pay-per-view, one network event, whatever you want to call it, a month. Let these programs build over time. I mean, if you do every other month, you're talking 8 good weeks to build up a storyline to drum up an interest from the fans. And I would even go a little bit further. Come WrestleMania, I would just blank out the whole month prior to WrestleMania to give that event a full 7 to 8 weeks to build as well. I think the calendar just gets too crowded at the beginning of the month with the Royal Rumble in January, and then a brand specific pay-per-view in January, and then another brand specific pay-per-view in February, if not 2, because I'm not 100% sure if they had 2 in February, but whether it's 1 or 2, regardless, it's too much leading into WrestleMania. So, they need more time. They simply just have too much product out there on TV.
Yeah, so this year they went with Royal Rumble at the end of January. You had Elimination Chamber, which was a SmackDown pay-per-view in February, and then Fastlane, which was a Raw pay-per-view in March. And then you basically had about 4 weeks between Fastlane and WrestleMania.
There you go. I mean, 4 weeks is just not enough time, especially for the biggest event of the year.
Yeah. No, you're definitely, if you're doing that, what they're banking on is setting up storylines from Royal Rumble and just hoping that they can develop it all the way through to WrestleMania. And then for the rest of the year, you've got No Mercy in September, Hell in a Cell in October. You have TLC in October, which is a Raw. And then you have Survivor Series November, and then 1 pay-per-view in December.
I got a great idea. Next episode, let's look at that pay-per-view calendar a little bit closer, and let's book the year for them. Let's pick and choose what pay-per-views we would like to see them get rid of, et cetera, et cetera. How does that sound?
That sounds good. And you know what? Survivor Series is in Houston. I might have to make that trip down.
Well, I'm going there. I got tickets, and shout out to Houston that's going through that tough time right now with the storms. So hopefully that'll pass over and doesn't affect the event. I mean, not that it's important, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you want to make sure that everything is safe and sound, but you hope that minimal damage or minimal destruction of property and stuff like that, so that the city can rebuild and heal faster. But I might have to look into some tickets here and go ahead and book that trip down to Houston. Cool,
man. Well, man, hey, I appreciate you chiming in real quick, man, giving me your thoughts on McGregor and Mayweather and some quick WWE thoughts. As always, man, much appreciated.
Always a pleasure, Triple R.
All right, man. We'll holler at you later.
All right, man.
All right, y'all, that's the end of today's episode. I'd like to thank Chris Cox and Ant-Man for joining me, sharing their thoughts on the Mayweather-McGregor event, and also for Ant-Man to stick around just a little longer to talk some quick WWE here on the Clean Finish. As always, appreciate everyone for taking the time to listen. Again, if you're listening to this video on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, the OSC Podcast Network. Go ahead and give us that thumbs up while you're at it. And if you're listening to us on the podcast feed, go ahead and leave us a review. Any thoughts, feedback, comments are much appreciated. I'd like to thank y'all once again, and we'll catch y'all next time.
We take what we want, and after we take Lex Luger and the Giant, we want the gold sucker Hulk Hogan.